We want to welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time to watch this. And we'll just double check that we've got most of the people who are going to be here when we start, and we'll get going. Um, okay. For the first 2 minutes, again, while a few more people join, let me just say that this has been a grand tradition of the Wilson Center for Humanities and Arts to have a cinema roundtable, usually once, sometimes twice a semester. We've been doing it for, I think, 25 years now. Lloyd Winstead of the Wilson Center has been really, really helpful over those years. Dave Marr helped put this one together, both the idea and he's behind the webinar right now, watching everything. So I thank the Wilson Center, all of their staff. But again, over the years, Lloyd has been terrific, and Dave Marr as well, and Winnie and Nicholas. It's a terrific place. So welcome very much to our roundtable. It's kind of an unusual one. It's a Wilson Center one, but it's also part of Spotlight on the Arts, our second, involved with that. And American Triptych and the Art of Collaboration is our title. This is a really special one. We've got 5 faculty here on the call who are all at University of Georgia. They all worked on the same short film, American Triptych. That film was written and directed, or partly written and directed, by Booker T. Mattison. Booker T is a member of Entertainment and Media Studies. He teaches directing as well as screenwriting in Grady College's Department of Entertainment and Media Studies. He also teaches, as do all the other people on your screen, in the new Master of Fine Arts program in film and television and digital media. Well, just to give you an introduction first to the movie, as the press book explains, 3 American lives are radically changed during the tumultuous summer of COVID-19. American Triptych dramatically explores food insecurity, homelessness, xenophobia, and police brutality, all exacerbated by a nation divided in a rising tide of uncertainty. The film is due out in December. We'll talk certainly more about that. Let me just introduce the panel, if I may. So first of all, in addition to Booker T., who earned his MFA at NYU, New York University, we have our producer, Chandra Mcdonald. Chandra earned her MFA from, just to show they're from around the country, from Howard University. This is Chandra's first year teaching at UGA. She's a member of Theater and Film Studies Department. She's based, however, at the Trilith Studios location in Fayetteville, where she teaches producing, directing, and screenwriting, and I must say survival skills, to our first cohort of students down there. Welcome aboard.
Thank
you. The editor, Bryan Cole, earned his MFA at NYU, New York University, also overlapping a bit with Booker T. They've known each other a while. Now in his second year at UGA in Theater and Film Studies Department, Bryan is a writer, a director, and a much prized editor in post-production. He teaches post-production and directing, as well as many other skills for our new MFA program as well. Our art director is Julie Ray. She earned her MFA from University of California at Irvine. She's a scenery designer for theater and film and TV and all kinds of venues and spaces. She designs in all kinds of things. She teaches design courses in theater and film studies for us, as well as art direction for the film and TV and digital media MFA as well. And our costume designer is Ivan Ingermann. Ivan earned his MFA also from NYU. He's designed costumes for all sorts of shows, theater, spectacles, all media as well. Just a wider range of things. He's the area head for design in Theater and Film Studies Department, and he also teaches costume design for our MFA program. So thank you all for participating. We really, really appreciate doing this for the Wilson Center and certainly for Spotlight on the Arts. I also just want to mention that there are other people, some are on the call, who were involved in this production, including Dave Kreutzer, my great colleague, as well, and other people from UGA formerly, some former students, etc., who really contributed to this valiantly to this great short film production. So Booker T. Mattison, I just wanted to start by having you tell us a little about how you got started with this project, or where the project came from initially. So if you talk about it a little bit, and then we'll start to talk about the contributions of each of the people on the screen.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say to start, one, I'm excited to be here, and two,
chat with my colleagues, and it's on a screen, but at least we're all together, which we haven't been in quite some time, which was pretty cool. So I must say that in coming up with the idea for the film, I'm already thinking about team building. So my approach is to involve as many people who I've either worked with before or who I think are cool, I'd like to work with in a production. So the team that we wound up with, I'm happy that they agreed to partner with me on this. But we're coming up with the idea, the idea really is, it comes in conjunction with, well, how am I going to do it with the resources that I have available to me? And the first part is, I didn't want to make a long film, because everyone on this panel knows the longer the film, the more it costs. So I wanted to do something short, really short. And that's how I came up with the notion of a triptych and just chronicling what happened in the summer of 2020. And my goal was for it to be both filmed entertainment and cultural artifact.
Which, do you want to say a little more about what you mean by cultural artifact?
Yes. So in addition to the film being distributed amongst film festivals, I also have a goal of it being exhibited in museums as well, as a document, a narrative document of the time, because of how disruptive the summer of 2020 was, I think, for all of us. We were discussing Monday, Richard, how in my 51 years, I haven't lived through a time so disruptive. And my father, who's 74, said the same thing. So he's older than I am. So I wanted it to be something that, 20 years from now, you can look back on it if you wanted to know what it was like to go through that summer and how it literally turned most everything upside down. And there's tons of films out dealing with COVID. So I wanted to have something that was novel, that would stand out amongst the many films about COVID-19. So the triptych as a presentation, I think, is unique in that regard, and a pretty daring story structure.
Terrific. Yes, it is a daring story structure, and hopefully that'll come through, that there are three very different parts, obviously in a triptych, but they're very different, slightly in length. Well, in length, part of it's dramatic as well, but they're very, very different. No overlapping characters from one to the next. So they are three separate little short stories in a short film. And we're going to get to this a couple different ways as we talk today. Do you want to say anything about the format for the short films? Like at Cine, every year we show the Academy Award shorts. And I usually do an introduction saying, some people think a short is just like a tiny little feature film. It really is a different format. So do you want to, and other people can chime in on this later too, but do you want to say anything about any challenges or just excitement of doing a short versus a feature film?
Yeah, well, the excitement is cost. So that's the primary concern. Cost, and another C would be control. Uh, because it's a smaller production, you are able to exert control over it. Um, but I think probably the most exciting thing is for me telling a story in a way that I haven't told it before, and having the opportunity to create and explore three different worlds. Each one has its own color palette, a different aspect ratio, different visual style. And that was intentional because the unity is, geographically it's America, but also thematically with the pandemic. But it's three disparate stories, three different protagonists, and how they dealt with completely different issues that essentially made up what that summer felt like, or at least what I hope the audience will feel or remember what that summer was like.
No, this is terrific because again, it's not a documentary in any way, but you want it to feel like it is, of the moment culturally, and that's really important. Well, if it's okay if we move on to Shandra for a minute. As producer, I just wanted to make sure not everybody in the audience is even going to understand always what a producer does, much less on, with a short format. So I was hoping you could say a little bit more about sort of what your duties, how early you came in on this production, and basically what you did, how you collaborated with Booker T to get this launched.
Yes, I came in very, very early in the process. And what always draws me to a project, well, there's two things. There's the script and there's the visuals and the previous work. And so I was very confident that Booker would be able to bring this to a certain type of fruition because he is a very talented filmmaker. He's a great writer, but also visually, he knows how to tell stories. The role of a producer is is multifaceted on a short film. You function as a creative producer, and then you also function as a logistics producer. Booker doesn't like to own on to this, but he's also a producer. I mean, when I came into the process, he made the process very easy for me because he had handled a lot of the logistics. I'm here in Smyrna, Georgia, and he's in Lawrenceville, which is about an hour to 40 minutes away. So we were consistently balancing location scouting and interviews and casting and a number of things. We did casting over Zoom, but we had a nice cadence and nice dance to that because he's a writer, director, and producer. He doesn't want me to say that, but he is, and a very talented storyteller. And then we had an amazing team. I mean, Julie, you know, what producers look for are resourceful and talented individuals. Julie Ray, I mean, just all hands down, you know, what she was able to do with a little bit of money and a small number of resources was magical. And Ivan, I remember one day when we were in the burger place and I saw Ivan sewing. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Now, interesting enough, what I have to say is I wasn't officially on staff yet, so I was meeting everyone for the first time. And then Bryan Cole, I mean, just amazing. So it's all about the resources, the staff, the individuals, and the vision too as well. So we have a great team.
That's terrific. Because again, I think most people, when they hear producer, they just think, oh, that's the person with the checkbook. So yeah. I mean, we don't want numbers or anything, but so you help get, is there a cluster of money sources, or
I would call it a cluster.
With raising revenue?
Yes. I did help raise money. Booker can tell you. I did bring an investor on who's on the call, I think, right now. But yeah, I did a little bit of everything. You know, the job of a producer is to support the director, and I supported him creatively, logistically, monetarily. And Booker's so talented, so it was not a hard, I shouldn't say it wasn't a hard sell, because then I'll make people believe that money's easy to raise, because it's not. But it does start with the talent of the filmmaker. And so because of his serious, you know, history of other films, I found someone who was very interested, who I was working with, and she wanted to be a part of the process. And she came down, and Booker was open. Her name was Karen Minot, and he was open to her being there every day. Karen came every single day, and she was a part of the process. So we had one thing I want to mention too about this process is because it was a triptych and there were many stories, there were many different opportunities to move here and move there and everywhere. And so we didn't have a first AD until maybe like 2 weeks before shooting, Booker. So that was on me. Yeah, Julie did a great job, of course, with her breakdown, but I had to break the script down. So producers have to be multifaceted. And yeah, he can speak more to just the company moves. Do we have a company move every day? I think we did, right?
We were moving a lot. And for those who, you know, obviously no one has seen the film yet, but December 3rd, Friday, December 3rd, from 6 to 7 in the Balcony Theater in the Fine Arts Building, please come and see the film. So hopefully the discussion here will whet your appetite for seeing the film on the big screen with that wonderful sound system. I really love the sound system in room 400.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Oh, I didn't realize it could be open to everybody. That's great. Well, this is fun. And again, as Dave Maher made sure we did, it's about collaboration. So the notion as we go around, this whole idea of how much people work with each other. So once again, not only people think post-production, you should show up when everything's done being shot. A lot of people think a producer writes a check and then waits to see when the movie shows up. So this is really fascinating. That's helpful. Well, it's okay if we move on to our designers, actually. So Julie and Ivan, I wish you'd say a little something about sort of your interaction. How early did you start being consulted? What do you do in terms of your process? And then it's also a limited short film. So in terms of the challenges maybe you faced. So I don't know if either you want to go first, if Julie or Ivan wants to say something about when you came on and what you got to do. Julie, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm so sorry. Like the lawn people just showed up out front and my dog is barking. So Ivan, you go first, and then I'm going to shut the blinds. It'll make for a more.
It sounds okay to us, but okay.
No, Ivan, go.
Ivan.
Okay.
Sorry, Ivan, you're on.
Hi. Yeah. So when the NYU Mafia calls, you listen.
That's right. NYU Mafia.
All right. When the capo calls you, you gotta do what these folks just came on as part of this new master's program. I've been here at UGA for 15 years. So so I was feeling lonely, and no, I was glad to be able to jump on. Julie and I have collaborated a number of times in different projects, and she said, "Oh yeah, so I'm going to start on production design for this piece." And I said, "Well, count me in. Let's see what the script is." And also this the project itself. The timing of it, what it says, I was proud to be a part of this because I thought that it was what was being said was apt, and it was necessary at this moment. And like Booker said, that documenting this moment is really essential. When we look back, we just finished doing a production of Rent. And that really was 25 years ago, where I grew up sort of in New York in the East Village. And I really didn't think anything about, where I was living and what was going on in that time and how special it was. And here we are looking at this musical Rent and thinking of it like a period piece, and thinking of it, like when I grew up, it's the 70s, we think of it sort of being in the 70s as being this far off time. Well, the 90s is now that far off time for the new kids, for the Gen Zs. Yeah, no, I was really, really proud to do the work on it.
But could you just say a little bit about how, like in terms of costuming? So you collaborate by that. So you look at the script, then do you talk to Julie? Do you talk to Booker T? Like, I was just in terms of choices of like who wears what, and of like how much flexibility do you get? Because I assume there's not a whole lot of budget for costuming and things, but you've got 3 different sets and 3 very different stories.
Yeah, so costuming.
What kind of creative work you did?
Well, what separates me from a fashion designer is that costume designers really build characters. So we tell stories through characters, and that takes the form of being the outward appearance of a performer, usually from the neck down. Another union, another department handles the hair and makeup. But we really are in this character development. So we want to build a story that's centered around them. And the script provides a certain amount. If it, in this case, it's a short, so we only get a little tiny window into this character. But what I really need to know is the backstory. Like, how did this person get to this point? What were the choices that they had to make? Where did they get their the clothing had to come from somewhere. They had to make a decision. Either, it was hanging on the back of the chair, kind of the halfway dirty, halfway clean item on the floor that they picked up and put on that day. Or, is it, $100,000 bespoke suit that comes from Savile Row? So it really can vary. And if you think about the thought process that you went into wearing the clothes that you have on now, the same thing. I have to get inside of that character and discover just who they are in order to make choices in regards to their wardrobe.
Terrific. So in the second story, I won't give much away, but what color dress she decides to wear, for example, is that in the script, or is that something you guys work out together? Or
yeah, it's something that we in the script, and that was very tightly controlled between Julie and Booker. Wanted to have a very specific choices that are made. So we yes, so that was scripted. That was a predetermined.
You brought the heat with the choices, Ivan. You brought the heat with the choices. I was torn. I didn't know which one to choose. And ultimately, I believe that Isabel, the actor, I believe she chose ultimately, right? The dress in particular.
No. You chose. It was all
you had all the choices though. And it was a
well, it's funny,
choices.
in film and television, we go through several different processes. In this case, it was pieces that we had already met, that were already constructed. A lot of times we were making things from scratch. So that's something that a lot of folks don't realize, that when you're watching a film out there. Typically what you're watching on any given film has been made for that actor. Some things that are modern can be bought at Target and the whatnot, but typically for a large film, you need to have multiples. So in that case, you need to have a large amount of duplicates, especially if there's anything that happens, like a spilled coffee, they spill coffee, or they get shot, or they get, something happens to the clothes. One film that I worked on a while back, we needed 14 of the same outfit, and they were wearing couture garments that really came over from Paris. So because the Chanel couldn't produce 14 of those, gazillion billion-dollar blouses, we had to make that. We made all of those clothes in-house. So that's something that, now clearly we didn't do that on this show, but that's something, just as far as costuming goes, that a lot of folks don't really understand.
Yeah. I think it's important to say that Ivan was functioning in double duty. He was a set costumer as well as the costume designer. One day he gave me Julie said, "Can you hold on to Ivan's belt?" And I was like, "The one with all the stuff we need?" And it had scissors, and it had all his things in it, and I had to bring it back the next day. I did bring it back though, but yes. He really, really outdid himself because he did double duty, and it was exceptional.
Well, thank you. Yeah. On any given film, you can have, on really large features, you can have up to 70 people just in the wardrobe area. There's an army of people that are needed to really make that magic happen. So just something to consider when you're watching your favorite film.
Cool. Terrific. Well, Julia, could you build on that now? I assume I couldn't, at least my ears are bad. I couldn't hear the
timing is everything. On this film, I was an art department of one, and normally art departments are very large, right? But when you're working on a smaller project, you wear many hats, not literally, but my process started with the script, right? And I remember one day in particular, Booker and Ivan and I got on a Zoom call, and I think it was a 2-hour Zoom, and it was a very detailed conversation of going through the script and asking a lot of questions of Booker, like, how are we dealing with this? Booker had very clear ideas from the start about color palette for the environments. So that was well established, and we didn't build any sets in this project, but we worked on location. So there was a lot of location scouting that we did, that Booker did some, and then I joined in later, and really figuring out, how are these locations going to work? Do they work with the environment we want to create? Do they work with how we have to shoot this? And there were a few options that were tossed out, and it's really piecing all of this together. It's piecing for me in creating these environments. It's piecing together what's written and Booker's conceptualization of that, and then the reality, right, of location and budget and that kind of thing, and how to best create a space that works for either the characters that live in that space or the workers that work in that space. And then the next level was props. So I covered props as well. So anything that had to be held by the actors, any set dressing in the backgrounds that had to be in the spaces, all of that fell under my umbrella. Yeah.
So the glassware and things for a dinner setup on a table, etc.
Everything.
You got 3 very, very different places for 3 very, very different stories, 3 very different Americas. That's terrific. We'll come back to visual style. Bryan Cole. So yeah, I was hoping Bryan would talk a little about the post-production and editing process, but also, again, how early are you involved in it, and sort of how this shoot went for you.
Well, thank you for inviting me here today and to see all you wonderful people. Is always a treat to get together and to, for me anyway, when I get the footage, I get to see all of the hard work that goes into it with every frame. So it's always such a pleasure to kind of approach the footage fresh. In terms of where I enter the process, Booker came to me very early. We have a relationship from being both NYU trained, and we knew each other in New York and at school. And I think we've had a mutual appreciation for each other for a very long time. So when he approached me, I didn't need to see the script. I didn't need to know anything. I was like, sure, I'll do it. I'm in. Because we have a shared language together, and I think that's that appreciation goes a long way when you're working with people, and you trust what they're going to do is going to be strong. And your job, for me anyway, is to support that vision editorially, and to, for me, I come in, I can be present on the set, or I can wait till after the footage has shot. On longer pictures, I'll come in very early and be part of the production process and be on set. In this case, there was no reason for me. There was a 3-day shoot, I think. So, what I had to offer wasn't
3
going
days?
to, I think it was a 3-day shoot, right?
Yep,
Oh.
3 days.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll come back to that. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, which is why there was a company move every day. And so, for me as an editor, I look at and I tell the students all the time, you're the first audience. So you're kind of a custodian of the audience's experience, but you're also a protector of the director's vision. So it's a very interesting seat to be in, because that often results in really interesting creative conversations. And my job is to be a creative partner, to be a collaborator, to be someone who, when I'm working with Booker or any director, or as a director with an editor, that room needs to be a safe place where you can have really deep conversations about the whys, why you did what you did, the performances, the highs and lows of production, all of the things that roll in that you experience on set is often amplified in the edit room. And so it's really about, for me anyway, looking for how to get the director's vision across, but also to protect that audience's experience, or to be the custodian of their experience. And so I look for performance and intention are my main drivers as an editor. And I will have a conversation with Booker. What do you want out of this? And he'll give me the kind of context around it, and hopefully I'll cut to that, and then we'll collaborate. We'll talk about the edit, and he wants to try something. He didn't like a choice I made. We change it and we see how that is, and we'll talk about performances. I like the performance you chose, but is there something else? We'll go through all the takes, but he might not have that list in his. For him anyway, it was great working with him because he gave me free rein to just do a cut, and so I got to do a cut, and then we talked about it, and I tried to do a very kind of unified cut. I didn't take a lot of risks, but I looked for performance and looked for intention, and then got back in touch. And then Booker and I sat together for I think 3 or 4 sessions, Book, and we tried, we recut it, and that's the process. And it was, from my perspective, it was wonderful. I don't know how it was for you, Booker, but it was great.
Well, I would say to those tuning in that initial cut that Bryan put together, what we wound up with, 93%, Bryan, of what you did. So, he built really good bones. And when the instincts and the choices are strong, you don't even think, you just feel it, because the idea is to you reach the viscera and in turn the intellect, not the other way around. So the cut was very effective. When you're working with a talented editor, well, you should let your editor go away and do a cut anyway, even if they're not talented. That's how they will become talented. And they see the footage in ways that you don't. And the adage goes that you direct a movie twice, once on set and the second time in the editing room. And Julie and Ivan, what I'm reminded most of is that All-American Burger logo that Julie created, and then Ivan had it embroidered on the shirts and the hats. It was, it was an amazing setup. So again, December 3rd, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can see the movie that we're talking about, and hope you'll come out. So Julie and Ivan, that process was the first for me. So I would love to hear, the way you two collaborated with that, because you all had like a subgroup going on, right? Where you're discussing, and then boom, okay, here are the choices. And then, once it's approved, then Ivan goes and puts it on the shirt, which is really cool. So could you talk about that process?
Sure. So part of the film takes place in a burger place, right? All-American Burger, which we needed to, in order to turn this location into this burger joint, you need signage, right? So you need a logo. And, dove into Photoshop or Illustrator, and created a logo. I did some rough ideas, different versions, and sent them to Booker. Said, do you like this one or this one or this one? And that's a big rabbit hole to go down. I was finding like, we have to decide, no more logos. So we picked one, and then it was, working with Ivan, like, okay, is this gonna look all right when you work your magic and make that thing happen? I just had to work the logo into signage, which is pretty easy to do. But Ivan had to work it into clothing, which is a harder task, I think. It was, I think the burger location was fun for Ivan and I, to figure out color palette and what's the location doing versus what is the clothing doing in supporting the color choices. And
yeah, so it may not be so obvious on that when you guys watch it, but in the second part, it's very obvious, the color palette. But the first part is still very controlled in a red, white, and blue color scheme. But it's not so obvious. It's not hitting you over the head. But then, you have that logo and how it stitches out. And when you go through the embroidery process, the stitch out has to have certain spacing, and so that it's still readable. You want folks to be able to read it. And there's lots that go into that sort of technical, but so that controlled it. Just, we wanted to make sure that, because when you think of a burger place, we usually think of the sign, right? The Golden Arches or Burger King. So you have this very, there we go. Yeah, and also it feels like you in seconds exactly what that is, right? So you have to make an impact really fast. And it was fun to collaborate on something like this.
And you want to speak to your sewing skills, Ivan?
Well, actually, I put in for a grant for an embroidery machine, but so I can't take all the credit. But the new embroidery machine that the department was able to get, was able to deliver on this, and that just adds to the, when I was working in LA, I would have to. There was this guy named Mr. Wizard, and he was right across the street from the Hustler Club, right down from the Whiskey A Go-Go, and the Hustler Club, or whatever it was called. Clearly, I never went. But anyway.
Thanks for tossing that in as an aside.
Thank you. That was awesome. We love that.
But you had to make this stuff happen really quick, and you wanted things to look professional and not just off the rack. And that was one of the things, is to have this logo, and it's here and it's there, just like you would expect at a regular professional restaurant when you walked in. So that was just one of those skills that you had to develop as a costume designer, like getting that together. Uniforms are always kind of a tricky thing. I think we spent the majority of the budget on the police uniform. That's something that most people don't think about. You just think, oh, it's a cop, like what's the big deal? But there's a lot that goes into that, especially modern police uniforms have Kevlar vest, and there's so much that goes into those things. The props alone, like Julie had to get together props, and that's always a collaboration. Policemen are always a collaboration because the props, they handle the belt and the badge and even the little insignia on the collar. All of that stuff has to handled by a different union, a different department, and then wardrobe handles this stuff over here, which is usually the uniform and shoes, hat, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm used to collaborating a lot with the art department for sure.
And can I just ask, how did COVID, since it's partly about COVID, affect the production? Were there certain things that you did completely differently because of it, or was it? Oops! Oh, there's your.
Yes. I can. Well, let's look at this. The amazing costumes and props. And Booker, if you want me to, I can touch on COVID, and we can.
Sure.
Oh, you got a
absolutely.
clip? You got a clip you can show, or you're just showing the image?
Yeah, just the image.
Yeah, this is from Story 2.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead, Chandra, talk about safety. Just when
I mean, what I would like to say about Story 2, I mean, I love all the stories, but I have to say, in a upsetting yet exhilarating way, Story 2 was just fascinating to me in terms of, I don't want to give the story away, but what Julie was able to do in that small space is a testament to her success, but also just, it's very upsetting in terms of the fact that she was able to go on the internet and find examples of people living this way, which is so tragic. And so people will enjoy it when they want to enjoy it. That's not the world. They will see that on December 3rd. But yeah, certainly COVID was an issue with, okay, go ahead, Booker, show. Yeah, like that is one. That is amazing. I mean, as a producer, I was busy, but at that point I was like, okay, slow down and just observe the magic, because this was just phenomenal. What she was able to do under Booker's guidance and vision and wardrobe, just everything was. And Julie, you want to talk to that? I mean, that was all inspired from real life, right?
Yeah, so I do a lot of visual research before I start designing a location set. And so these people, I don't want to give away anything, but you can tell.
You can give it away. You can absolutely give it away.
So this family, had to live in their car during the pandemic. And the research is fascinating. How do people function in such a tiny space, and what's priority and what's not? And obviously they have a child. And so, they would probably focus on making it they would try and make it a good space for her, for themselves, right? It was about making comfort for her. So, that was the thinking that led to putting the little rice lights across the roof there, right? So when she's lying down at night, there's something pretty to look at. How are they storing whatever they decided to keep when they had to make this life shift? And thinking about, prioritizing the goods in your life, like what are you saving and what are you not? It was an interesting process.
Yeah. And to the fact that we were in the parking lot where we were shooting, I mean, that was something that was just truly a testament to Booker's favor, success. I mean, we secured the location, the abandoned parking lot, a day before, 2 days before?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was it was less than a week, I can say that much.
Yeah, and it put a lot of pressure on us as a production, having to go back and forth and on the other, but we did it. We got through it. But moving on to COVID, I mean, goodness gracious, my students and everyone's students here are shooting now and in the midst of this, and it's a serious matter. Booker did secure an agreement through the Screen Actors Guild. He can talk to the different sets of actors who we had who were attracted to this project because of Booker and the screenplay. But we had to, that testing, I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, it would keep me up at night. We had to get people tested ahead of time. We had to, one of my main jobs on set was to make sure the day before, did people send in their tests? There was a lot of compliances that we had to file. We had to make sure that we were COVID, you know, we had certain protocols on set, hand sanitizers, this, that, and the other. I mean, I want to give a lot of credit to Booker's wife, Angie, because in addition to just amazing craft services, food, I mean, she was our home base. She also provided lots of just PPE. I mean, PPE was everything that we had to follow and be a part of. And so, you know, we as a team, I think in all of our classes try to encourage our students to follow these protocols, because even though it's a short film, I mean, because it's SAG, it became a union project. So there was no getting around it. But it's a slippery slope, as I'm sure everyone can attest to, but it's important and it's worth it.
Oh,
And because of the rise in the number of cases, SAG actually changed their policy.
Yep.
What, the 20th of July, and we shot, I think, what, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah.
So
we had to shift.
Our entire COVID plan had to change, because it immediately shifted on July 28th when we got the email saying that everyone, cast and crew, whether you're vaccinated or not, had to be tested not more than 48 hours before production began.
Yes.
So it couldn't be, couldn't be 72 hours, and I made that mistake. I had to get tested a second time because I got tested too early.
Right.
So it was talk about strain, because,
Yeah.
We had a 3-day shoot, and, if anyone would have come back positive, the DP, a lead actor, it would have sunk the production. We didn't have the latitude, to reschedule.
Yeah.
So fortunately, everyone was healthy, and we had a challenging but safe set.
Terrific. And I think we need to answer a question that some people might have out in the audience, which is, why aren't we showing the movie? It's not that long. So do you want to say a little about what happens with the movie next? Why you can't premiere it like right away? Tell us some of the practical concerns about where this movie goes next.
Sure. Well, and the main, there are two main reasons why I'm not showing it as a part of this. One, we're actually not done. We'll be done this week. So probably 96% done. And December 3rd will be the cast and crew screening, but the UGA community at large is welcome. There's 300 seats in there. So please do come. Masks are strongly encouraged. And the primary distribution plan for a short film is a film festival. So we will be submitting to a number of Academy Award qualifying festivals, meaning if you get into and win the Academy Award qualifying festival, you become eligible for a short film Oscar. So we have a list that we plan to submit to. And that, of course, all takes place after the cast and crew screening. So, the screening on the 3rd will be the first opportunity for people to see it on the big screens. We're excited and hope that everyone who's here in this session will come out on Friday the 3rd.
Sorry. There's a question saying, will there be a discussion after the screening? Your goal is to have a number of people here from the production, right? Correct?
Yes. So I hope that my colleagues who are here on this panel can join for a post-film screening, which will be fashioned similar to this. Of course, we will have seen the film then, but also with actors as well. So yes, there will be a film discussion. So come armed with curiosity and then questions.
And since Chandra brought up the casting, and also just to make sure everybody knows, SAG is the Screen Actors Guild for actors. Do you want to say a little about actors in terms of like how did you cast it? Where did they come from? So you didn't just anyway. Yes, I won't ask a second question yet. Where did you get your marvelous actors? Because a short, tight movie like this, they have to not only hit their marks, they have to be good. And these guys, they're come alive. They're very real. So So how did you
Chandra,
cast
do you want
him?
to speak to that?
What you can go ahead and I'll jump in.
Okay. Well, we had over 1,000 submissions through Actors Access and Backstage. So there was a lot to sort through. And one actor I worked with in my previous film, John Tavius Johnson, who's in Chapter 3. So I worked with him prior, and everyone else, yeah, I found either through Actors Access or Backstage. Am I correct, Chandra?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
John
Absolutely.
Tavius.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I have to
Terrific.
say, Booker decided to do somewhat of an in-person audition in Lawrenceville. There's a satellite facility in Lawrenceville. And because we had initially done things on Zoom, and then he wanted to do things in person. And due to the nature of the project and just people wanting to be a part of the project, they came out for it. Because I was like, we're not doing that. and he said it's going to be fun, it'll be great, because that was still COVID kind of, high numbers, etc. But it was a wonderful audition, and we were safe, and we had all the protocols. But people really, I mean, the great thing about the micro budget agreement that we were able to use for this film, and I know Bryan talks about his class, and everyone talks about the different agreements in their classes. It's kind of a hybrid of different phenomena where it allows you to have Screen Actors Guild actors, and the agreement is such that you don't pay anyone, okay, which is good for an independent project. But it allows you to have that talent, and we had a variety of people who flew themselves, and we had a lot of different scenarios due to Booker's talent and the script who just want to be a part of it. And they were phenomenal. We had a lot of actors, and the chemistry was great, and so it was an awesome time, and they all did a great job. Yeah.
So it's a really interesting mix, Booker, that you've chose to have for your crew and your talent, mostly people you've worked with before or from UGA, including your cinematographer. You can talk about him as well. But then the bulk of your cast, are unknowns to you. That's kind of a nice mix in some ways, but it also seems kind of risky to a certain extent, I guess.
It's a part of the soup, that we create whenever we're cooking up something special, and I hope that's what you all would think this film is on December 3rd. And to chime in on the acting moments, which are what we see in the film, that the saying that you direct a movie a second time in the editing room. So some of the moments that Bryan captured were really, really wonderful. And in capturing those moments, it encompasses Julie's incredible set design, and Ivan's costume design, and of course Chandra's logistical wizardry. But just choosing those moments, and there's so many other moments that we won't ever see. So capturing the right moment so that it resonates is so incredibly important. And Richard, I'm glad you were able to see it. And Richard was the first one to see it. It wasn't quite done, but he has a sense of what it was. So to hear you say that the actors nailed it means a lot, because that's a director's greatest friend, best commodity is it's an actor.
I'm just kind of curious too. So Bryan, was there a shot that you thought, oh, this is the shot of this story that kind of surprised Booker too, or did you guys all agree pretty much on, in other words, was there something that you kind of discovered in a shot, a look or something by one of the actors or anything that impressed Booker, or just any shot that you just really thought, kind of came alive for you? Sorry to put you on the...
Yeah, no, it's I wouldn't say it's any one. Sometimes it's a shot. I think Booker was extremely efficient with how he approached each scene, and so you're really there to try and find the performance, and the performances were there, so it was like an embarrassment of riches, really. But I also think that, one of the things that you want to do, or at least for me as an editor, is there's a look or there's a way a character is going to come across that feels honest or authentic. and and then there's, I guess, a variation of that authenticity within a performance, and you're always looking for the most authentic moment. At least I am. I don't know. Is that resonate for you, Booker? And so just to kind of close that off, it's usually I'm looking at a performance holistically, you know, and there's one shot, a moment where a character's doing something and they deliver a line differently than they delivered the line at any other time, because they're in this one spot where they're actually doing something that they have to concentrate on it, but the line is coming out. And it was the only time they said that line that way, doing that thing, because all the other times they said that line, they weren't doing it. So it just made that line more authentic. So it wasn't the most beautifully shot line. It wasn't the most technically perfect, but the performance was what really, really added to the scene. And so then it's, for me anyway, then it becomes, Booker wants to see all the other moments, and then it's, you know, we try a couple of them or we take a look at it, and then it's his choice. And but in this case, he agreed that was the one line that was an authentic moment. So I think that's a good example of, I chose something that resonated for me because I'm fresh, and then we talk about it and we look at it, and then he can overrule me. He's the director, but we have those creative conversations around it and then make the choice. And I think for any of us, that's really when it's the most fun, is when you're having those creative conversations about a specific thing. Like with Julie's set design, for example, in the car, I wanted to use the wide shot because we want to see the context, and the context is so evocative. You don't need a lot of time in that wide shot, but it paints the entire picture. And so now it gives you the opportunity to go into a close-up and play the close-ups, because you have this very secure world. The mise en scène, we talk a lot about that in class, is there. And so the environment is created, and it's created because she created it, you know, and it wouldn't work otherwise. You wouldn't have the same story, or that embroidered, like the branding, and the fact that it's on the hat, and, you know, that's all, you know, the world that's being created by these wonderful artists. And for me anyway, editorially, I'm trying to honor that so that the audience feels secure in the world that you've asked them to enter and the story you're asking them to follow. So that would be, so that collaboration is really important. And to see, is there a specific shot? Sometimes there is. In this case, the efficiency was what is, I think, so strong about the film. I think it's just, it's very focused, and there's, you're in very good hands the whole time.
And it is an intense process, obviously, but shooting in 3 days and making short, intense films. Oh, there we go with the hat and the blazon. That's great.
Well, this is I just need to comment on this one. So this is one of those things. I was cutting this little scene, and I love this. The woman that played the cashier was great. So I cut the scene, and then Booker was like, wait, there's no light in the, you know, we lit that refrigerator back there. And I was like, oh, I didn't even notice that because I was focused on the performance. And then we picked the shot with the lit refrigerator, which totally made the scene better. And so it's just those little, that's a mise en scène thing. And it's got the logo on it, as you can see. So those little pieces are really important to bring into the mix and to have those conversations. It's a little detail that you will never see from an audience perspective, but there was a choice that was made that didn't have that, and it was a lesser choice than the one that he chose ultimately.
And Demi's a student, that actor.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a student here.
Right, she was. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yes, and I think it's important too to give a lot of credit to Garland, because Garland was on every single location scout.
Mhm.
He was in every
Just
single
explain.
meeting.
He's the cinematographer.
Cinematographer.
Yeah,
Did a
extremely
beautiful job.
organized, beautiful job, extremely organized. I mean, in a big picture way, but every single meeting he had his plans, he and Booker would talk through the lighting designs, the shot lists. I mean, there were times where as a producer, you're so busy with this and the other, and I would just stop what I was doing and be like, oh my God, that was gorgeous. And I take a little shot of it, or I put something on Instagram to just continue to build momentum for the film. But he did a phenomenal job, and he was prepared, right, Booker? He came to the set with Booker prepared visually.
Absolutely. And he and I had met over, because the film was supposed to be made in February of 2020. But at that point, the pandemic was raging, and I also didn't have the budget. So it was pushed from February of 2020 to August of 2021. And, all the pieces came together, and I'd already approached Julie way back, and Bryan as well, way back. And so I had to re-ask once the project was once we kickstarted it all over again. So fortunately they were available. And at that time, I'm trying to think. So you said you weren't officially at UGA?
No,
Sandra,
I
when you
wasn't. I
started?
wasn't.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
like, if they don't hire me, I'm not going to do it. Just kidding. I was always going to do it.
That's hilarious.
Well, it's getting late. Our hour is nearly up. We do have a question in there that's actually really, really pertinent. Do you want to say, everybody can say a little bit now to, like, why do you do these things, but also how you balance working and doing your normal job and this. So I think a lot of people don't quite understand what's expected of you as an academic in terms of doing professional work and having projects going all the time. So the question is really, how do you balance doing your real job and taking on projects like this? But I think everybody should be aware that, yeah, you're taking on projects all the time, correct? Or at least looking for what's your next professional project. So does anybody want to say a little about balancing the two things, or what how this is expected of you, basically, to be doing acts like this?
Well, I'll say that, this is a creative endeavor at the University of Georgia is considered the same as publishing. So we're very lucky in that the university recognizes that. And that's what we do. So, and also not only that it's required for tenure, that sort of process, but that's how we keep ourselves fresh, and we want to work on projects and then bring that back to the classroom, because that's an active part of our educating the next generation to do these things, to bring that, what's straight from the front. You want to bring back exactly what's happening and how it's occurring now versus how things were shot 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You can quickly become stagnant. So this just is a part of keeping the blood fresh.
Yeah.
Anyone want to contribute else?
I'll say it's borrowed time. No one has the time. We make time. We're inspired by the work, and we make the time. And it's a balance across. I mean, Bryan, we have phone calls on when we're driving, and Julie, we all do so many different things. And for me, I mean, I have projects coming up, but I'm just the byproduct of Mom. Hi, Mom. She's on the call somewhere. She's watching. Who taught me how to produce early on, and Dad. And so, we just do the best we can. But it's the work that brings you there, and you can't not do it. So you just find a way to make it happen.
I was going to say, I had another design project happening while this was also in production. I was designing a set for 12 Stone Church in Lawrenceville. And then I had a Christmas show starting, and, the juggling act is the struggle is real, it's hard. And at least in the design world, it uses very different parts of your brain, and sometimes leaping back and forth is challenging between getting the job done as a designer and then going into the classroom and teaching it. So we're all very, very good at time management and communication. Those are key. Yeah.
I think something else that needs to be mentioned is that the fact that we all are creative professionals and academics, that means that they actually can work for the pittance that I offer to pay. I mean, really. So there is that opportunity for that. I mean, in addition to working with talented colleagues, you know, they can work for, you know, the peanuts that I was offering. I'm certainly grateful that they did. And, you know, at a Research One university, you do what you teach. You don't just teach it. So I was telling Julie when we were talking about all the challenges with the pandemic, that essentially what we're bringing to the classroom is a textbook, because we were on the front lines when SAG made the shift, you know, back to the more, you know, draconian measures. So, and we're what, 2 weeks away from the semester beginning. So it's part and parcel of what we teach, you know, what we do.
Yeah, Bryan, anything to wrap us up on teaching?
Oh,
I
mean, I
you're always working.
I couldn't agree more. You know, during this, I did a project for History Channel and doing one for PBS, and then this, it's been very busy, and but that's part of this path. If you want to remain, you know, up to date and working and at the highest levels and trying to make your own mark in the work that you do and how you do it and the people that you work with. It's like Julie said, or like Ivan said, it's similar to publishing. So it's just busy, and but you get to bring that experience into the classroom to make so that you can empathize with where the students are as well, and know what it is they're going through, and say, hey, this is how I got through it, you know, by doing this, or by approaching the work like this. And I just think there's it's busy, but it's also relevant to the students, and that's where the real knowledge exchange happens for me anyway, is that you can empathize with where they are. You can meet them where they are.
Well, for a teaching institution, it's a good place to wrap up, just to remind MFA students that none of the people on here would be there where they were if they hadn't been efficient and creative and balanced real life and working. You wouldn't have gotten your MFAs to begin with. And that's really valuable stuff also now. But also just this sense that that working together, as you know, helping each other out, watching each other's backs, collaborating like this kind of project, it's rare, but it's also like really important, marvelous opportunity. And it also reminds MFAs that, hey, as Booker T mentioned, a project like this doesn't necessarily pay a whole lot. Therefore, it's good to have an academic job that pays the mortgage and the rent. And then you can do your creative job during the summer, other times. So academia is great for creative artists, I think, in lots of ways. Well, I just want to thank our panelists. All of you are just marvelous colleagues and friends, and I'm honored to be able to be the moderator here. Thank you to Dave Marr for putting this all together in the Wilson Center. But thank all of you out there who are like 60-some people, look like. Thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to December 3rd. There will be more information about that screening for people. Our names are all on here. People can contact us if they need. So thanks very much to everybody. Thanks, Dave Marr. And again, this will be recorded, so it'll be on YouTube for any friends who couldn't see it.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.